Hello and a very warm welcome to FrontPage, only on the AIM network, India's definitive media organization and voice on everything AI and technology. This week promises to be massive in terms of artificial intelligence. Governments, tech giants, investors are all accelerating their moves. And to map all of those real moves in real time, here are the headlines. The Indian cabinet has approved a 10,000 crore rupees, that is approximately $1.1 billion Fund of Funds 2.0, doubling the deep tech recognition window to 20 years to fuel high-stakes long-term innovation in global technology. OpenAI hires OpenClaw creator Peter Steinberger to lead its autonomous personal agent division. While Steinberger joins the corporate frontier, his viral AI that does things transitions into an independent open source foundation. Google's new Paper Banana tool uses smart AI agents to turn hard science, a text, into clear professional pictures. It saves researchers hours of work by drawing their charts and diagrams automatically. Blackstone leads a massive $1.2 billion funding round for Neysa, propelling the Indian AI cloud startup to unicorn status at a $1.4 billion valuation to scale domestic GPU infrastructure. And finally, the ICRIER OpenAI report, AI and Jobs, this time is no different, confirms AI isn't killing India's IT sector. It's killing the grunt work. While entry-level hiring slows, high-skill demand and productivity are exploding. Our main story concerns India's obsession with the quick pivot. As we know, in startups, a pivot is just a polite way of saying your first idea failed. We thought every problem was a software patch and used our best engineering minds to manufacture them at large. But rockets don't iterate mid-flight, and you can't beta test a heart valve inside a living patient. So basically, we spent billions on food delivery apps on the convenience economy, while science that matters had to fend for itself. But not anymore. Hopefully, because India has put 10,000 crore rupees, that's $1.1 billion in fresh capital, on the table to trade 10-minute grocery runs for long-term science. It's time to actually stop funding the next 10 minutes and start building the next 10 years. For years, India's rule were very simple. Become a giant in 10 years or you were old news. It was speed over substance. We were essentially punishing scientists for not having the quick success of a dating app. Thankfully, the government has stopped checking its watch. They've doubled the growth window to 20 years and raised revenue limits to 300 crore rupees. India is finally admitting that while you can ship a software patch in a weekend, real science takes a generation. It wasn't a lack of talent holding us back. It was actually a lack of patience. And to give you a very interesting example, think of it like the interstellar docking scene. It's high stakes, it's slow motion. One wrong move and the whole mission blows up. So what India did is to release that crazy tension. It gave the pilots more oxygen. And now, of course, let's talk about the numbers. Let's talk about the trillion-dollar dream. In 2025, India's deep tech attracted $1.65 billion. Sounds big, right? Fair. But let me just show you the numbers being dealt with in other countries. China hit $81 billion, the US $147 billion, which brings us to the realization that we have the engineering scale, we have the talent, but we are essentially trying to win a space race with a very enthusiastic paper airplane. And now, the startup India Fund of Funds 2.0 wants to close that gap. Because now, it's about sovereign AI, aerospace, climate technology. We are finally outgrowing the help desk economy to become an engineering powerhouse. Every year, we trade $224 billion worth in software services to build other people's dreams. Now, of course, we are finally embracing an opportunity at funding our own. India is choosing to own the actual patents and discoveries instead of just being the maintenance crew for the rest of the world. Meanwhile, of course, in Delhi, the hype around the summit isn't just real, it's also very expensive. Hotel suites are going for $30,000 a night. That is 15 times the normal rate. So basically, if you want a room, you'd better have founder or GP in your bio. Give us, of course, a clear understanding that AI has arrived and it brought surge pricing with it. That makes Uber looks like a very generous charity. PM Narendra Modi inaugurates the AI Expo today in all of its glory. Our team, Siddharth and Pallavi, are at the summit. They are going to ensure that they can unveil the serious engineering breakthroughs and news indicating what's actually being built and exposing what's just a remarkably convincing lie on paper. And here, of course, is the front page take. So what does this actually change? If you're 25 and starting a lab, you finally have the time to fail and try again. The urge to move your headquarters to the United States shouldn't hit you like a panic attack anymore. But also, let's be realistic. A government check won't invent anything for you. The money is there and the rules are better for sure. But you still have to build the next big thing. The heavy lifting is still yours, my friend. The only difference now is that you have the breathing space for that breakthrough to come to life. We would definitely like to know, what do you think about these changes? This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. While everyone was busy laughing about AI models gossiping with each other, they missed the point entirely. It's like watching two toasters argue, which is quite a disturbing distraction for sure. And that is the exact point. It being just a bait and switch tactic. Because the real fight isn't over who writes the best poem. It's about digital co-workers. It's the difference between a bot that talks about Ooty and the one that actually enters your credit card, books the flight, and fights the airline for a refund while you're watching the sunset. And that scramble to own your life admin just got very real. Peter Steinberger, the brain behind OpenClaw. He's now actually officially an OpenAI employee. The hire itself was a major power play. OpenAI basically absorbed the most talked about person in the industry. And by doing this, the biggest competitor to the mothership is now a valuable team member. OpenClaw is the AI that actually does things. It manages your inbox, fights your insurance company, checks you into flights while you sleep. And since November, OpenClaw has managed 185,000 GitHub stars, 2 million visitors in 7 days. Wow. So basically in the developer world, those achievements translate almost to a religious experience. But then, of course, there's a snag. The so-called OpenClaw had a complicated birth. First, it was a Claude bot, then Molt bot. Why? Because in Anthropic, the Claude creators weren't particularly overjoyed with the name. In came, of course, the lawyers from Shadows, wearing a very polite lawyer's smile with a gift-wrapped cease and desist. But Peter Steinberger was unruffled. He very calmly renamed it and praised Anthropic for being graceful. Then, with perfect timing, he went straight to their biggest rival. He played nice with the lawyers just long enough to pack his bags. It was cold, calculated, and honestly, quite legendary. Altman, of course, admitted he was a skeptic. He didn't want an AI touching his laptop. That fear lasted exactly 2 hours. Why, you ask? Because once an agent finishes your cause, the fear vanishes. And that is because utility is the ultimate medicine. What this shows us is that we are moving from AI as a search bar to AI as a teammate. But the trillion-dollar dream has a foundational problem, which is our systems are built for humans, security, liability. The IT guy at our office is currently having a serious panic attack because he does not know how to give a digital coworker a badge. And you know, interestingly, Steinberger could have built a unicorn, but instead he chose the mothership. He said OpenAI is the fastest way to change the world, which is just his way of actually admitting that he wants the biggest GPU cluster on the planet. That is great for Peter. But what does this mean as far as you are concerned? It means your operating system is becoming a command center. Apps are fast becoming a thing of the past. And if OpenClaw becomes the foundation, agents become as common as TikTok. And here, of course, as always, is the front page take. OpenAI has just secured the lead product voice for the agent economy. The internet has laughed at the chatter. OpenAI is invested in the action. We, of course, would like to know what's your take. Are you ready to let an agent run your life, or are you going to keep holding on to the steering wheel all by yourself? Please do let us know in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. You've been working on this for weeks. The numbers finally work. Everything is ready for a massive breakthrough. Congratulations. Then, unfortunately, you hit a roadblock. 6 hours of your life with a lot of caffeine, and you're still fighting with a PowerPoint slide because the arrows won't stay straight, and it has nothing to do with your coffee intake. It's actually that annoying busy work tax on being smart. But Google just announced a fix with a name that sounds like a, well, total joke. Paper banana. Ridiculous, but with a very deadly serious mission. It's coming for the last manual frontier of the research paper, the methodology diagram. AI already does the heavy lifting. It writes the literature review, cleans the complicated code, and drafts the abstract. But the moment one needs a methodology figure, I'm really having fun with that word today, everything goes back to the Stone Age. Manual layouts, misaligned boxes. In research, a bad diagram is a death sentence. So if the reviewer can't track your data flow in 10 seconds, one word and emotion come to mind: reject. Paper Banana wants to end the graphic design for scientists' nightmare. And it's not just a fancy filter. It's actually an agentic system that reads your methodology text. It looks at your caption, and I'm not doing this on purpose. I have to tell you, this is a disclaimer. I'm not doing this on purpose. And of course, it gives you the publication-ready illustrations. The ultimate aspect, the Paper Banana research paper was illustrated by Paper Banana itself. Wow, the snake is back at eating its own tail, not disturbing at all. Midjourney was different, and this is not Midjourney, because you can't just prompt cool flowchart. As in science, one wrong arrow is literal misinformation. Paper Banana solves this by running a 5-agent war room. The retriever hunts through top-tier neural IPS papers for structural DNA. The planner maps your text into a visual blueprint. The stylist enforces that academic look, which is clean, disciplined, boring in a professional way. Then, of course, the visualizer and critique enter a cage match. Generate, critique, refine, and then repeat. 3 cycles of internal fistfights until the diagram is perfect. The catch? Amazingly, there isn't one. In blind tests, humans chose the AI version nearly 75% of the time. That's 3 out of 4 researchers saying, yes, give me, please, my Sunday afternoon back. But of course, here is the very strange part. The secret sauce isn't what you think. The researchers found that the AI didn't need a reference diagram about your specific topic. It just needed to see any good diagram. Style matters more than semantics. It turns out the human brain just wants visual order. That's interesting. It's actually like a Christopher Nolan movie. The plot can be complex, but if the cinematography is crisp, we're strapped in. Paper Banana, apart from making art, is also making clarity. So, what is in it for you? If you're a student, you just leveled up your professional aesthetic. If you're a researcher, your citation count might actually go up because people finally understand your work. The conversation here is about the shift from tools to agents. We are moving away from click and drag to command and control. Research pipelines are becoming autonomous. The friction between a big idea and global understanding is definitely vanishing. Google named it Paper Banana to keep it light, but don't miss the forest for the trees. When the most tedious bottleneck in science disappears, innovation hits warp speed. Sometimes the difference between a Nobel Prize and a forgotten PDF is just a diagram that actually makes a lot of sense. Please do let us know what you think in the comments below. Are you ready to let an AI draw your thesis, or is the human touch of a messy PowerPoint still sacred? This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. Neysa just announced a $1.2 billion drop on the table, and Blackstone is writing the checks. The message: India is tired of renting its future from Seattle and Mountain View. 3 minutes. That's all you need to know why the map of the AI assistant. Neither is it writing poems or generating images of cats in space. It's actually building a power grid, a massive high voltage foundation for the Indian digital state. $600 million in equity, $600 million in debt. That is more like a sizable war fund, and the enemy is dependency. Right now, Neysa has about 1,200 GPUs. In the world of AI, that's the equivalent of bringing an umbrella to a cyclone. But with the kind of money I just mentioned, it completely changes the game. They're scaling to 20,000 plus GPUs. We are talking about NVIDIA's heavy hitters living in Indian data centers. Why? Because compute is the new VIP list. And if you don't own the club, you're actually just the guy outside trying to convince the bouncer that you're very important. That's exactly where Neysa steps in. They're building the GPU as a service model, which essentially means you get to rent the muscle, but also keep the data. The West wants a borderless AI. India wants a fortress. Let us just think about your bank records, your health scans, government secrets. Would you want them processed in a server farm in Oregon, for example? The Indian government says a definitive no. And Neysa becomes the execution layer for sovereign AI, achieving the fact that we can now keep the data on the soil and also keep the processing in the zip code. It's the classic utility play. It's like finally getting a BESCOM connection instead of running your own expensive generator. You just plug in, pay for what you use, and focus on the work. India, according to the banter, has been given the position of a third pole in the AI race. The reality is far from it, because we are playing catch-up against trillion-dollar titans. AWS and Azure aren't just going to hand over the keys to the kingdom. But we can take heart in the fact that Neysa has a home court advantage. Local pricing, local compliance, which means zero latency for the Bengaluru startup trying to train a foundation model on a budget, allowing a democratization of the compute monster. For the 20-somethings who are watching this, I like to say this to you. You've seen the AI will take your job headlines. Forget that. Look at the foundations. If you're a developer, a founder, or a researcher, the bottleneck wasn't your brain, so never doubt that. It was actually the bill from your cloud provider. Neysa is trying to slash that bill. They're building the gym so that you can do the heavy lifting. Wow, interesting. Financial services, healthcare, public technology, they're all lining up. And here, of course, is the front page take. The hierarchy is clear now. NVIDIA makes the brains, OpenAI writes the logic. But Neysa wants to be the ground you stand on. India is moving from user to owner. The $1 trillion dream just got a $1.2 billion down payment. The power grid is live, and what we need you to do is to keep your eyes on the hardware. Software is just the ghost in the machine. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. We'll take a short little break right now, but when we are back, we're going to be back.
GCCs. Yes, that's the present footprint in India of the global population of GCCs. $1.9 million people are gainfully employed in these global capability centers. $64.6 billion was generated in the fiscal year 2024. But the big target, that's 2030. 2,200 GCCs is what India wants to notch up to, employing more than 2.8 million people.
I wrote in my book that failures were in bold font for me and success was like default.
If you really want to control the narrative of life, you can do no wrong.
The people who focus on success and, sort of brush away failure, like a Virat Kohli is a great example.
Is doing a great job in bringing the GCC ecosystem together.
So you're adding a lot of value to the GCC ecosystem.
Oh, I had to take a beat and sit down to make sense of this amazing roller coaster ride that we've had at MachineCon 2025. We will catch you again at the next MachineCon.
70.
We have been told again and again that AI is coming for our jobs, an eviction notice, if you will, for your desk, your salary, and for that matter, your security. If you've been on LinkedIn lately, you felt that collective knot in the stomach of every IT professional in India. But a massive study of 651 firms just announced a reality check. The AI apocalypse isn't a mass layoff, it's actually just a management consultant's dream. While the workforce isn't being erased, the door is closing very tightly for freshers as work becomes harder and more specialized. Please don't get me wrong and think that this is the end of the Indian IT dream. It actually just might be the end of the average employee. And today I have with me Supreet Kondinya, our tech journalist who has been, well, researching this and a lot more. And he is going to be shedding light on the context, the report, and what probably lies ahead. Welcome to the show, Supreet. How are you doing? It's a pleasure as always.
Hello, Sudhi. Happy to be here once again. How are you doing?
Wonderful, Supreet. So let's just start off with the fact that 651, it's a massive report.
Yep.
What is the report trying to say, first and foremost, and what's new about the report?
Right. So over the last few weeks, we've heard a lot of chatter from industry leaders, especially from the West. You've got Dario Amodei from Anthropic, Vinod Khosla also recently saying that Indian IT is under threat, the IT service industry is under threat from AI. So what this report does is to try and paint a better picture of those statements, debunk how much of that statement is true, and what are the nuances that these surface level statements sort of miss. And this survey exactly puts those insights into perspective. And what is new is that it just says that it isn't as doomed as people says, but with a lot of caveats, especially in terms of how the research is conducted, which we will get to stage by stage. But yeah, I think what this report is trying to say is that the debate is a lot more nuanced. It's not
so it's
just
not a blanket statement.
It's not a blanket statement to make that Indian IT is doomed. A lot of sectors within Indian IT, there are a lot of kinds of jobs within Indian IT, and the myths that most of Indian IT jobs are just repeatable and something that can be, that is just rote work or just manual labor that can be replaced by AI is sort of false, is what the report is trying to.
Which brings me to this, which is interesting, which you just mentioned, right? That the most exposed sectors to AI actually have a demand for people. Isn't that counterintuitive?
Exactly. I think
strange,
that's one of the core statement that the report is trying to make. I think the report even starts off with something really strong. I think we can see this on our screen, that the report says that everyone has opinions, but we have the data. What they say. That's a strong statement. And this report, before we forget, is from the Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations and OpenAI. Some of their chief economists and strategy folks have also collaborated in the report.
So they're serious people who are doing
Exactly,
this.
of course. This is a very, very legitimate source, a very a serious source. We've got economists who've done this all their life. So again, you mentioned this has 651 companies in the report. And what they've done is they've interviewed all these people and they've addressed how much of an exposure does a particular job have with regards to AI. Exposure in the sense how much it can impact in terms of productivity increase, in terms of reducing the work that a human has to do, whether it's a certain part of it or end to end. And this figure too, as our viewers can see on our screen, shows that statisticians and mathematicians or app developers, database administrations, basically a host of software engineering jobs receive the highest exposure.
Give me a few numbers, Supreet, if you don't mind, just for my reference.
Right. For example, if you were to say that 1 is the lowest exposure and 5 is the highest exposure to AI, statisticians and mathematicians have an average exposure, a mean exposure of 3.86 out of 5.
Wow, that's high.
That's pretty exposed. You got app developers, database designers, and computer network administrators, and basically software engineers, all upwards of 3 and 3.3. So they're pretty much exposed to AI, right?
It's like being exposed to radiation in a way.
Exactly. But the thing is, the interesting aspect that even the researchers say that they were surprised is that when they asked people, the industry leaders, okay, you say that these sectors are exposed to AI, how much has the hiring demand dropped or increased? Surprisingly, they found that the demand or the requirement for people in these sectors that were highly exposed to AI were also high, right? This is the graph that are...
that's actually quite interesting.
Exactly. So that's counterintuitive, right? So for example, this figure 3 that people can sort of see on our screen says that, let's say, application developers, right? High exposure to AI, but the demand for them has also increased. Now, how does that happen? Right? Now, before we get to how that happens, let's also look at the people or the roles and skills whose demand is also decreased due to AI, right? Now, this includes data entry, or even if you look at software testing, inspection, quality assurance.
Which is more rote work, as you had mentioned.
Exactly. Right. Then you've got HR, administration, coordination roles. All of these also have high exposure to AI, highly impacted by AI, but also hiring has decreased.
Sure.
What is this distinction that's happening? Right? Let me reiterate. One sector, highly exposed to AI, demand is also getting higher. The other sector, also highly exposed to AI, moderately exposed to AI, but demand is getting lower. Why?
Is it because of the creative aspects or the more
or less? Exactly. You're getting there. The thing is, they've broken these two down into, profit centers and cost centers.
Fair enough.
one set of people, the first set of people that I spoke about, mathematicians, statisticians, software developers, they fall under the profit sector, the profit centers
Because
of
of their
these IT
skill
companies.
sets.
Exactly, they generate money, right? You got, let's say they undertake more and more projects, which means more and more revenue. With regards to the cost centers, they're fixed, right? They of course are a huge, strong backbone to the profit centers, but they do not directly bring in revenue.
Fair enough.
Let's say an HR team or a
I
comms
hope
team.
ours is not listening.
Exactly. That's what I'm being really careful, because I personally also believe that they're a massive backbone to the profit sector as well, but they do not directly bring money.
We have, by the way, I'm so sorry, just
Of
a
course,
disclaimer, we have a
course.
paucity of time and we need to cover a few things. So I'm just...
Of course, right. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah.
So this is the key aspect, right? So what they're saying is that more and more people you bring in the profit sector, the profit center of people, right? You bring in more software engineers, AI impacts their productivity, more work gets done, the job, the manual work is reduced. These people sort of outsource their rote work or their repeated work to AI. They can take on more projects, right? So that's the intuition, or that's the nuance that they're bringing. If you can see the diagram that is being shown on the screen, you got adoption of AI, higher productivity. This does not mean in the long run more and more people, headcount is reduced. You can get more people, which means they get to use more AI.
addition,
Exactly.
basically.
You put it very
addition.
simply. They can undertake more projects and the profits keep on increasing. Again, this is what the research is trying to sort of
finally,
prove.
that's what honestly, Supreet, everyone looks at.
Exactly. In
Which
a
brings me
nutshell
to
is that,
this.
you got higher headcount, higher profit, because more and more projects are being undertaken, because more AI is being used.
Which
That's
I think,
the
in a
picture
way,
here.
I mean, I'd put this down for you, but I guess you've already answered it.
Right.
But still, if you could just very quickly tell me, what kind of skills should people look out for?
Right, of course. So based on the interviews that they've taken with the 651 companies and their industry leaders, generative AI skills, the ability to use these skills are quite high. 68 out of 70 people said that. Then you got data analytics, data science, machine learning, basically something that's really true to the technical aspects of AI.
And this is for, of course, all the people who are watching right now. This is very important.
Of course, you got to be proficient in today's AI tools, proficient in knowing what gets you huge amounts of productivity gains, something that is much sought after today, yet something that's really fundamentally true to computer science and AI.
Fair.
So those are the skills that are
required.
In demand.
Finally, I'd like to ask you, and this is important for us to kind of, debunk in a way, as going back to our legacy together.
Right.
The fact that we cannot walk away from the fact that Indian IT has had huge layoffs, massive layoffs. Which brings me to this question, Supreet. Does this report then give a very clear, unbiased, unmitigated picture to the people? Or is it something hidden in the nooks and crannies?
Right, of course. To, I think, objectively answer that question, yes, there have been layoffs, and this report does not disagree explicitly that there haven't been any layoffs. It does say that demand has declined for specific roles like manual quality assurance or software testing, unless we clearly have a picture of what those layoffs in Indian IT specifically, what roles they were for. We cannot correlate as to whether this report is being truthful to it or not, or if it just misses that nuance.
Fair point.
On the other hand, what I also find a little concerning with this report, at least as per my knowledge, again, I'm happy to talk to the makers of the report, is that this relies mostly on the qualitative aspects, right? The questions asked assess the sentiment. It asks, hey, in the range of 1 to 5, tell me how much your division is impacted by AI. But it'd be more concrete if there were exact numbers. Let's say they're talking to an IT company.
Again, a valid point.
They get the exact numbers, like, okay, these were your number of headcount in 2024. This was your in 2025. Can you explicitly tell me how many people from software engineering division were laid off because of AI?
Given these gaps, but still, how would you rate this report? And finally, how would you like to tell all of the people who might be a little anxious, given all of the stuff which has been going around, in terms of the rumors, call it, in terms of the general discussions, what would you like to say this report does for them?
Of course, this report is of immense value in terms of assessing the sentiment of the IT industry folks, the decision makers in terms of understanding what they think and how their company needs to grow. And of course, there are a few nuances that you need to be careful about. This does not get the exact numbers.
Got it.
This is a qualitative research at the end of the day. gives you an insider view of what our industry leaders
So
think.
it's not falling apart.
It's not, of course, it's not
Fair.
falling apart based on what the report says. But of course, we need more and more IT leaders to be more open, again, if they can be, because they're dealing with publicly listed companies out here, in terms of what the layoffs were, whether AI actually disrupted it, and by how much. Until we have those numbers, we cannot paint a black and white picture. But this does give you a good idea of.
Can we summarize this, Supreet, finally by saying this in one line, that people don't need to panic if they are upskilling themselves,
Of course.
but they definitely need to panic if they are not trying to figure things out for themselves.
100%, that's always been the case. Go out there, be proficient with AI tools, right? Be proficient in building, right? The world needs more and more builders. If not for IT companies, tons and tons of startups are being born every day that seek high quality engineers with like a good amount of skills in AI and knowing what works best, and a great idea of being a big problem solver. So this report basically reinforces that again. If you can see on the screen, the amount of skills that are in demand today are all demanding proficiency in AI.
Fair.
So you don't need to panic. As long as you trust yourself and upskill, you will find a spot today. But yeah, Indian IT is not falling apart as per this report, given how they also want to invest in generative AI and associated tech.
Got it. Well, as always, Supreet has made his points quite elaborately, and all I have to say to everyone who's watching, please become a part of the profit center of a company. Upskill yourself, and I guess what is being frowned upon right now is mediocrity. This, ladies and gentlemen, is, well, Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM.
$1,700 GCCs. Yes, that's the present footprint in India of the global population of GCCs. $1.9 million people are gainfully employed in these global capability centers. $64.6 billion was generated in the fiscal year 2024. But the big target, that's 2030. 2,200 GCCs is what India wants to notch up to, employing more than 2.8 million people.
I wrote in my book that failures were in bold font for me and success was like default.
If you really want to control the narrative of life, you can do no wrong.
The people who focus on success and, sort of brush away failure, like a Virat Kohli is a great example.
MachineCon is doing a great job in bringing the GCC ecosystem together.
So you're adding a lot of value to the GCC ecosystem.
Oh, I had to take a beat and sit down to make sense of this amazing roller coaster ride that we've had at MachineCon 2025. We will catch you again at the next MachineCon.
1,700 GCCs. Yes, that's the present footprint in India of the global population of GCCs. $1.9 million people are gainfully employed in these global capability centers. $64.6 billion was generated in the fiscal year 2024. But the big target, that's 2030. 2,200 GCCs is what India wants to notch up to, employing more than 2.8 million people.
I wrote in my book that failures were in bold font for me and success was like default.
If you really want to control the narrative of life, you can do no wrong.
The people who focus on success and, sort of brush away failure, like a Virat Kohli is a great example.
MachineCon is doing a great job in bringing the GCC ecosystem together.
So you're adding a lot of value to the GCC ecosystem.
Oh, I had to take a beat and sit down to make sense of this amazing roller coaster ride that we've had at MachineCon 2025. We will catch you again at the next MachineCon.
1,700 GCC. $1,700 GCCs. Yes, that's the present footprint in India of the global population of GCCs. $1.9 million people are gainfully employed in these global capability centers. $64.6 billion was generated in the fiscal year 2024. But the big target, that's 2030. 2,200 GCCs is what India wants to notch up to, employing more than 2.8 million people.
I wrote in my book that failures were in bold font for me and success was like default.
If you really want to control the narrative of life, you can do no wrong.
The people who focus on success and, sort of brush away failure, like a Virat Kohli is a great example.
Con is doing a great job in bringing the GCC ecosystem together.
So you're adding a lot of value to the GCC ecosystem.
Oh, I had to take a beat and sit down to make sense of this amazing roller coaster ride that we've had at MachineCon 2025. We will catch you again at the next MachineCon.
1,700 GCCs. Yes, that's the present footprint in India of the global population of GCCs. $1.9 million people are gainfully employed in these global capability centers. $64.6 billion was generated in the fiscal year 2024. But the big target, that's 2030. 2,200 GCCs is what India wants to notch up to, employing more than 2.8 million people.
I wrote in my book that failures were in bold font for me and success was like default.
If you really want to control the narrative of life, you can do no wrong.
The people who focus on success and, sort of brush away failure, like a Virat Kohli is a great example.
MachineCon is doing a great job in bringing the GCC ecosystem together.
So you're adding a lot of value to the GCC ecosystem.
Oh, I had to take a beat and sit down to make sense of this amazing roller coaster ride that we've had at MachineCon 2025. We will catch you again at the next MachineCon.
70. $1,700 GCCs. Yes, that's the present footprint in India of the global population of GCCs. $1.9 million people are gainfully employed in these global capability centers. $64.6 billion was generated in the fiscal year 2024. But the big target, that's 2030. 2,200 GCCs is what India wants to notch up to, employing more than 2.8 million people.
I wrote in my book that failures were in bold font for me and success was like default.
If you really want to control the narrative of life, you can do no wrong.
The people who focus on success and, sort of brush away failure, like a Virat Kohli is a great example.
Is doing a great job in bringing the GCC ecosystem together.
So you're adding a lot of value to the GCC ecosystem.
Oh, I had to take a beat and sit down to make sense of this amazing roller coaster ride that we've had at MachineCon 2025. We will catch you again at the next MachineCon.
$1,700 GCCs. Yes, that's the present footprint in India of the global population of GCCs. $1.9 million people are gainfully employed in these global capability centers. $64.6 billion was generated in the fiscal year 2024. But the big target, that's 2030. 2,200 GCCs is what India wants to notch up to, employing more than 2.8 million people.
I wrote in my book that failures were in bold font for me and success was like default.
Front page on the AIM network, India's definitive media organization and voice on everything AI and technology, is loud and proud today to bring to you the fact that the India AI Impact Summit 2026 has begun in New Delhi, bringing the world's biggest AI leaders, policymakers and companies to what is now one of the most important AI markets on the planet. But beneath all of the excitement, the GPUs and the global CEOs, a darker question is lurking. Can AI derail democracy? And today, India policymakers warned, yes it can. At the summit, Minister of State for IT, Jitin Prasad, warned that AI-generated misinformation has the power to undermine democratic systems, especially in a country where elections happen year-round. Because this is synthetic persuasion at scale. Why is this so different? Deepfakes erase trust. A fake video released hours before voting can shape perception before facts actually catch up. Misinformation is now personalized. AI can tailor propaganda by language, region, and community, delivered through trusted networks. We've mentioned it, we've seen it, we've experienced it. Emotion spreads faster than truth, ladies and gentlemen. AI doesn't need to convince you. It only needs to provoke you. That's the new battlefield. Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav has highlighted the growing crisis of deepfakes and misinformation and confirmed India is in talks with 30+ countries on technical and legal safeguards, because synthetic media doesn't respect borders and democracies cannot fight this all alone. India's principal scientific advisor described AI as a double-edged sword, capable of transforming education, governance and health, while also posing long-term societal risks if left unchecked. The goal now is to sharpen the opportunity. Yes, it is very important. But more importantly, it is also to blunt the risk. This summit is massive. Let me just give you the numbers. 3,000+ speakers, 500+ sessions, 300+ exhibitions and demonstrations, 2.5 lakh expected visitors, delegations from 40+ countries, expo pavilions from 13 nations. Global leaders are arriving later this week, and the guest list includes, get ready for it, Sam Altman, Sundar Pichai, Demis Hassabis, Dario Amodei, global policymakers and heads of states. Because, well, for AI companies, it's very evident by now that India is the largest open digital market, a talent powerhouse at that, and the next billion user frontier. So what is to be expected? Here it is. Massive AI infrastructure announcements. India's compute demand is exploding, as we know, as we cover it very extensively here on Front Page. Expect data center deals, sovereign AI stacks, and GPU infrastructure investments. AI for Bharat, not just AI for big tech. India's focus is quite clear on that account. Scale AI across healthcare, agriculture, governance, MSMEs, and education, the sectors that really matter, the sectors that really in so many ways are palpable. Global AI governance and copyright framework discussions are underway to balance innovation with creative rights and, more importantly, media protection. Sovereign AI and semiconductor momentum. India is positioning itself for domestic AI capability and chip ecosystem growth. Wow, AI talent and jobs, that's the big one, because of course we've all been facing the tremors, we've been hearing the news, we've been talking about it on Front Page. Transformation AI won't eliminate jobs. No, it will unbundle them on the other hand. Skilling and workforce transition will dominate conversations, as it has in our own. Safety, deepfakes and democracy protection. We need to expect stronger collaboration on safeguards against misinformation and cyber threats. And trust me, these are some of the announcements which will be made in the AI Impact India Summit. In a fireside conversation on merging cultural heritage with frontier tech, leaders have emphasized AI should amplify human creativity, not replace it. Yes, that's the key. While global consensus is needed to balance innovation and creative rights. Already on display at the summit, autonomous delivery robots and drone logistics, AI in disaster prediction and management, and of course, response AI, reducing medical diagnosis time globally. AI enabling MSMEs to access digital commerce. UPI One World enabling global delegates to transact seamlessly. This, my friends, is AI moving from lab demonstrations to public infrastructure where it matters the most. But before the keynotes even begin, the AI boom has hit Delhi in the most realistic way possible. We've discussed this on FrontPage, but it's always interesting to reiterate something, which is something that massive because it talks about the impact. Hotel suites reportedly are touching $33,000 per night. When compute demand meets VIP demand, pricing algorithms win. AI can strengthen governance, yes, we know that. AI can strengthen economies. AI can strengthen public services. But you know what? If truth becomes synthetic, the question is, can democracy remain authentic? I'd definitely like for you to tell us, what do you think in the comments below? It is just the beginning. The Prime Minister has inaugurated the summit. He has said that let the games begin. It is going to be a colossal carnival of some amazing announcements, some very awesome innovations. Hopefully, the road ahead will be actually paving in a direction which will be only hammering on the points that we keep making here at FrontPage on the AIM network. I just have to say this, we look forward to this coverage. We are going to be doing it extensively here on FrontPage. Please make sure that you're part of this wonderful AI carnival with us. Think AI, think AIM.